Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome back. For those of you that are new, my name is Susan. I am a freelance fiction editor specializing in sci-fi, fantasy, and romance. I saw a video the other day of an author who was ranting about his latest read, and the author of that book had chosen to use modern profanity in a fantasy setting. The creator didn't appreciate being taken out of the world by, if you'll excuse the language, damn and shit. Language in a fantasy world is always a fascinating topic to me. What words should you change? Not change? Where is that line? So I thought I'd weigh in on the subject. First, I'll say there is no pleasing everyone. Everybody has different opinions and tastes, so while you can read comparable titles, books like yours, to see what your audience might prefer, it needs to be ultimately your call and preference. Your story, your world. To that author's credit, I think profanity and references to deities are the best example to discuss. Regardless of the world, it doesn't tend to bother me much if my characters use modern profanity or God. Oh my God, God damn it, etc. I sort of look at that in my brain as part of the, translation. If I were truly in a different world, the whole language would be different, right? So here I am, clearly reading English, so the swear words for me kind of get lumped in with that. That detail has never really caught me, but I can see why it would. The line to me for language has to do with culture and storytelling. What relates to creating the world you're in and playing with it, same as you do in writing scene description. How much does the reader really need, and how much is too much? So swearing in gods is something that is generally changed. It has to do with language, both culturally and the voice of the characters, and the gods tie into world building and culture, obviously. So totally makes sense that these would be unique words, and it's pretty easy to assume what those words mean through context. There isn't much of a learning curve. It's when authors consider taking it a step deeper that it becomes a bit of a debate. I read a book once where the author had chosen to change seemingly very random words into their fantasy language. I'm talking even basic things like cutlery or household items. It made the book so inaccessible to me, because it wasn't something that had to do really with the world or the plot. It was just a small detail that had made it harder to dive into the narrative. It was something I had to learn or figure out to keep going. As an author, it is your job to direct the reader, to show them what's important in a scene and what's not. You are conducting the story. It's how foreshadowing works. It's why showing versus telling is so important. It's how you layer in a backstory or world building. And part of this is deciding what words you're going to change and include, and what words you are going to create or borrow from a culture, which is a whole other video. Again, linking back to the beginning, there will be no pleasing everyone, but you need to decide as the author what works best for your world and your ideal readers. So as you're writing your next fantasy, ask yourself these questions as you consider the language. First, do I need a fantasy word for this thing, or will a regular term do? Second, does it make sense in your world? Could there be things like this there? Off the top of my head, this includes things like the word gentleman and all the historical connotations, or like having an apple on an alien planet. Do we need a new word for it for the setting, feel, the voice, or world building? God's names and swear words tend to fall into this category. And finally, the biggest question, is it going to take your reader out of the story? And this goes for modern words or fantasy words. Using OMG in a high fantasy setting is going to be jarring and awful. Don't do it. Please don't do it. But so will using a random fantasy word in place of just spoon. It's just a spoon. Just let me read that it's a spoon and keep moving. I rarely DNF books because I'm always curious about the writing, structure, or voice, even if I'm not wholeheartedly enjoying the book. But I'm telling you right now, I did not make it through that one. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on word choice in your fantasy books? What makes it real to you versus distracting? Where is that line for you? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps the channel, and until next week, keep reading.